What's up, guys? This is a reading of Brutus No. 1, written likely by Robert Yates. Brutus is a likely pseudonym. Um, it was written in 1787 and it is arguing whether or not a great republic should be adopted in the adoption of the U.S. Constitution. This is an anti-federalist argument against the adoption of the proposed Constitution, and it is a great read, in my opinion, for those who um, are interested in personal freedom and liberty and are concerned with a growing uh, centralized government that threatens to erode every individual liberty we now possess. So, as I read through this, you guys can feel free to follow along. I hope you guys enjoy this reading. I may pause briefly throughout to give my personal take on it, but more so, this is just a reading, so just enjoy and let's follow along if you want to. Brutus No. 1, 1787. Let us now proceed to inquire, as I at first proposed, whether it be best the 13 United States should be reduced to one great republic or not. It is here taken for granted that all agree in this, that whatever government we adopt, it ought to be a free one, that it should be so framed as to secure the liberty of the citizens of America, and such as as to admit of a full, fair, and equal representation of the people. The question then will be whether a government thus constituted and founded on such principles is practicable and can be exercised over the whole United States, reduced into one state. If respect is to be paid to the opinions of the greatest and wisest men who have ever thought or wrote on the science of government, we shall be constrained to conclude that a free republic cannot succeed over a country of such immense extent, containing such a number of inhabitants, and these increasing in such rapid progression as that of the whole United States. Among the many illustrious authorities which may be produced to this point, I shall content myself with quoting only two. The one is the Baron of Montesquieu, Spirit of Laws, chapter chapter 14, volume 1, book 8. It is natural to a republic to have only a small territory, otherwise it cannot long subsist. In a large republic there are men of large fortunes, and consequently of less moderation. There are trusts too great to be placed in any single subject. He has interests of his own, and he soon begins to think that he may be happy, great, and glorious by oppressing his fellow citizens, and that he may raise himself to grandeur on the ruins of his country. In a large republic the public good is sacrificed to a thousand views. It is subordinate to exceptions, and depends on accidents. In a small one, the interest of the public is easier perceived, better understood, and more within the reach of every citizen. Abuses are of less extent, and of course are less protected. Of the same opinion is the Marquis Beccaria. History furnishes no example of a free republic anything like the extent of the United States. The Grecian republics were of small extent, and also was that of the Romans. But of these, it is true, in process of time, extended their conquests over large territories of country, and the consequence was that their governments were changed from that of free governments to those of most tyrannical that ever existed in the world. Not only the opinions of the greatest men and the experience of mankind are against the idea of an extensive republic, but a variety of reasons may be drawn from the reason and nature of things against it. In every government, the will of the sovereign is the law. In despotic governments, the supreme authority being lodged in one, his will is law, and can be as easily expressed to a large extensive territory as to a small one. In a pure democracy, the people are the sovereign, and their will is declared by themselves. For this purpose they must all come together to deliberate and decide. This kind of government cannot be exercised. Therefore, over a country of any considerable extent, it must be confined to a single city, or at least limited to such bounds as that the people can conveniently assemble, be able to debate, understand the subject submitted to them, and declare their opinion concerning it. In a free republic, although all laws are derived from the consent of the people, yet the people do not declare their consent by themselves in person, but by representatives chosen by them, who are supposed to know the minds of their constituents, and to be possessed of integrity to declare this mind. In every free government, the people must give their assent to the laws by which they are governed. This is the true criterion between a free government and an arbitrary one. The former are ruled by the will of the people, expressed in any manner they may agree upon; the latter by the will of one, or a few. If the people are to give their assent to the laws by persons chosen and appointed by them, the manner of the choice and number chosen must be such as to possess and disposed and consequently qualified to declare the sentiments of the people; for if they do not know, or are not disposed to speak the sentiments of the people do not govern, but the sovereignty is in a few. Now, in a large extended country, it is impossible to have a representation possessing the sentiments and of integrity to declare the minds of the people, without having it so numerous and unwieldy as to the subject in great measure to the inconveniency of a democratic republic. The territory of the United States is of a vast extent. It now contains nearly 3,000,000 of souls, and is capable of containing much more than 10 times that number. It is practicable for a country so large and so numerous as they will soon become to elect a representation that will speak their sentiments, without their becoming so numerous as to be incapable of transacting public business. It is certainly not. In a republic, the manners, sentiments, and interests of the people should be similar. If this is not the case, there will be a constant clashing of opinions, and the representatives of one part will be continually striving against those of the other. This will retard the operations of government, and prevent such conclusions as will promote the public good. If we apply this remark to the condition of the United States, we shall be convinced that it forbids that we should be one government. The United States includes a variety of climates. The productions of different parts of the Union are very variant, and their interests, of consequence, diverse. Their manners and habits differ as much as their climates and productions, and their sentiments are by no means coincident. The laws and customs of the several states are, in many respects, very diverse, and in some opposite. Each would be in favor of its own interests and customs, and of consequence, a legislature formed of representatives from the respective parts would not only be too numerous to act with any care or decision, but would be composed of such heterogeneous and discordant principles as would constantly be contending with each other. The laws cannot be executed in a republic of an extent equal to that of the United States with promptitude. The magistrates in every government must be supported in the execution of the laws, either by an armed force, maintained at the public expense for that purpose, or by the people turning out to aid the magistrate upon his command, in case of resistance. In despotic governments, as well as in all the monarchies of Europe, standing armies are kept to execute the commands of the prince or the magistrate, and are employed for this purpose when occasion requires; but they have always proved the destruction of liberty, and are abhorrent to the spirit of a free republic. In England, where they depend upon Parliament for their annual support, they have always been complained as of oppressive and unconstitutional, and are seldom employed in executing the laws; never except on extraordinary occasions, and then under the direction of a civil magistrate. A free republic will never keep a standing army to execute its laws. It must depend upon the support of its citizens. But when a government is to receive its support from the aid of citizens, it must be so constructed as to have the confidence, respect, and affection of the people. Men who, upon the call of the magistrate, offer themselves to execute the laws, are influenced to do it either by affection to the government, or from fear. Where a standing army is at hand to punish offenders, every man is actuated by the latter principle, and therefore, when the magistrate calls, they will obey. But where this is not the case, the government must rest for its support upon the confidence and respect which the people have for their government and laws. The body of the people being attached, the government will always be sufficient to support and execute its laws, and to operate upon the fears of any faction which may be opposed to it, not only to prevent an opposition to the execution of the laws themselves, but also to compel the most of them and aid the magistrate. But the people will not be likely to have such confidence in their rulers, in a republic so extensive as the United States, as necessary for these purposes. The confidence which the people have in their rulers in a free republic arises from their knowing them, from their being responsible to them for their conduct, and from the power they have of displacing them when they misbehave. But in a republic of the extent of this continent, the people in general would be acquainted with very few of their rulers. The people at large would know little of their proceedings, and it would be extremely difficult to change them. The people in Georgia and New Hampshire would not know one another's mind, and therefore could not act in concert to enable them to effect a general change of representatives. The different parts of so extensive a country could not possibly be made acquainted with the conduct of their representatives, nor be informed of the reasons upon which measures were founded. The consequence will be they will have no confidence in their legislature, suspect them of ambitious views, be jealous of every measure they adopt, and will not support the laws they pass. Hence, the government will be nerveless and inefficient, and no way will be left to render it otherwise, but by establishing an armed force to execute the laws at the point of bayonet. A government of all others the most to be dreaded. In a republic of such vast extent of the United States, the legislature cannot attend to the various concerns and wants of its different parts. It cannot be sufficiently numerous to be acquainted with the local condition and wants of the different districts, and if it could, it is impossible it should have been sufficient time to attend to and to provide for all the varieties of cases of this nature that would be continually arising. In so extensive a republic, the great officers of government would soon become above the control of the people, and abuse their power to the purpose of aggrandizing themselves and oppressing them. The trust committed to the executive offices in a country of the extent of the United States must be various and of magnitude. The command of all the troops and the navy of the republic, the appointment of officers, the power of pardoning offenses, the collecting of all public revenues, and the power of expanding them with a number of other powers, must be lodged and exercised in every state in the hands of a few. When these are attended with great honor and emolument, as they always will be in larger states, so as greatly to interest men to pursue them, and to be proper objects for ambitious and designing men, such men will be ever restless in their pursuit after them. They will use the power, when they have acquired it, to the purposes of gratifying their own interest and ambition, and it is secretly possible, scarcely possible, in a very large republic, to call them to account for their misconduct, or to prevent their abuse of power. These are some of the reasons by which it appears that a free republic cannot subsist over the country of the great extent of these states. If then this new constitution is calculated to consolidate the 13 states into one, as it evidently is, it ought not to be adopted. So the main argument in this is essentially that a large republic cannot represent the autonomy of the people. It cannot represent the interests of the several states efficiently and effectively. And they specifically warn us that Robert Yates in this specifically warns us that a government of this magnitude will be used by elected representatives to abuse their power for personal interests. What do we see happening today? We see lobbyists, we see representatives accepting bribes for their votes. I mean, the list goes on and on. This is exactly what the Anti-Federalists were warning us about this instance that we are dealing with today. Our current circumstances and everything surrounding it, the size of the government, and the disconnect from the representatives to the people is exactly what the Anti-Federalists were warning us about, and it's exactly what happened. A republic of this magnitude cannot stand because it cannot efficiently and effectively represent the people in the several states. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.